You are watching RTV News with me, Jane Mutoni. Environmental experts have urged African countries to invest more in protecting the environment. Participants of the just concluded Africa Protected Areas Congress have visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial located at Gisozi, where they were given explanations about Rwanda's history. In this edition, let us inform you that on Saturday morning, President Paul Kagame held a courtesy meeting with the former president of Niger, His Excellency Mahamadou Issoufou, who was in Rwanda for the just concluded Africa Protected Areas Congress. The gathering, the first ever, had begun here in Rwanda on Monday. Environmental experts have urged African countries to invest more in protecting the environment because 10% of the continent's GDP is linked directly to activities involved with the environment, and that with the proper investment, that figure can significantly increase because things like national parks can account for as much as 60% of the GDP of some countries. Take a look.
The inaugural Africa Protected Areas Congress has now been concluded in Kigali after being officially opened by Prime Minister Dr. Edouard Ngirente on Monday, the same day he inaugurated the Nyandungu Eco Park, an urban wetland that was restored and repurposed for wildlife conservation and ecotourism.
Nyandungu becomes a place where everybody wants to go, to have a clean air, to be in touch and in connection with the biodiversity. So now Nyandungu is open, and seeing the good progress made from a degraded wetland into a beautiful ecotouristic site, we are carrying out some of the feasibility studies to make sure that even from Nyandungu, we are going to Gikondo. The people living near Nyandungu are benefiting more than people who have never been in Nyandungu because they are having a breathful air from Nyandungu. And the songs of birds that are in Nyandungu now are the ones waking up people living near Nyandungu. And that creates the connection, the bond between biodiversity and the human being.
The Congress was attended by 2,400 delegates, with another 5,000 participants taking part virtually, and the need for greater investment in environmental protection was emphasized.
It is well known that 50% of the global GDP is rooted. In one way, 60% of the GDP is derived from the protected areas. The return on investment in this investment in protected areas are around 1 to 100. It is the best investment you can make. So why should government invest in nature? Because they want to develop the country, because they want to find a better future for their citizens.
The establishment of a trust fund was discussed during the gathering, as well as other sources of funding, and cooperation was also highlighted as vital in this endeavor.
We cannot do this alone. So partnership is very important. Collaboratively, we discussed how best to not only increase the funds that flow onto protected areas and conservation areas in Africa, but also to inform how it is dispersed in an equitable manner that addresses the direct needs partners and organizations, local communities, the youth, and the private sector. Most important, that we would like to play a larger role because we know that we cannot be successful in conservation without everybody chipping in. It needs a collective effort.
It was also stressed that African countries need to adopt a united front if they are to make any headway when it comes to environmental efforts.
Participants of the just concluded Africa Protected Areas Congress have visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial located at Gisozi, where they were given explanations about Rwanda's history and what led to the terrible atrocities that were committed during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi that was perpetrated. Here's the clip.
Je viens de visiter le mémorial.
I came here to visit the memorial of the genocide against the Tutsi, and I am saddened by what people had to endure, and I urge the survivors and all Rwandans to remain strong. I cannot understand why a person would choose to take another person's life, and my message to all people is to love one another and not to see each other as enemies.
Leur faire croire que leur voisin est leur ennemi.
You can only understand Rwanda when you live it. You can only understand the people when you sit and have a meal with them, where you fear their aspirations, when you feel their desire for a life that you and I just want. They're not asking for much more. They're just asking to be who they are and asking to be part of the family of nations.
The Chief of Defense Staff of Benin, who is on a working visit here in Rwanda, has noted that the good relations between the two countries has continued to lead the expansion of military cooperation. Innocent Mugabo has this report.
Salut, General! Presente!
The Chief of Defense Staff of Benin arrived at the Rwanda Defense Force headquarters this Saturday and was received by the Chief of Defense Staff of the Rwanda Defense Force, General Jean Bosco Kazura. He held discussions with his Rwandan counterpart, stressing that stable cooperation between the forces of Rwanda and Benin is one of the reasons for his visit to Rwanda.
Je suis venu au Rwanda, pays ami, pays frère, mandaté par le président de la République du Bénin, le président Patrice Talon.
I came to Rwanda, a friendly country towards Benin, sent by President Patrice Talon of Benin to his counterpart, President Kagame. The presidents have a good relationship. I also came to see my colleague, General Kazura, to talk about security. As you well know Benin's problems in this area at the moment, who also gave me constructive advice. We benefit from the experience of the Rwanda Defense Force and share it because, as you know, RDF has gone through a lot that made it grow, and it is appropriate that someone will come to them.
C'est une armée qui mérite d'être visitée pour bénéficier de l'expérience de cette armée.
The general also visited the Kigali Genocide Memorial at Gisozi, where he paid his respects to over 250,000 bodies resting there. He was taken through the history of the genocide against the Tutsi, where he noted that this should not happen again anywhere. He also took the time to visit the Campaign Against Genocide Museum at the Parliament building in Kimihurura. This is the second time General Baduidi is visiting Rwanda, the first visit being in March this year. Innocent Mugabo, RTV News.
In the last 10 years since BUTARO Hospital started treating cancer cases, it has received more than 1,300 children. It is at a time when kidney cancer is one of the most common cancers among children treated in this hospital. Martina Abeda has this report.
The treatment room for children with cancer in BUTARO Hospital, we found their children mostly under the age of 10. A mother named Uwimhowe Mary is taking care of her 5-year-old child who has been sick there for almost 6 months. This child's illness is said to have started in November of last year, 2021, when he began to swell part of his neck. My child started swelling around the neck, but wouldn't feel any pain or any fever. What we did first was to take him for treatment. We started out in private hospitals, then went on to King Faisal, CHIK, and others. We later on found out that he had cancer. This mother and her fellows all came to the hospital with their children in bad condition, but now they are confident that they will recover due to the treatment they are receiving.
Where my
child is now in terms of health is completely different from where he was when he was first diagnosed. Before, it would be impossible to eat because the neck was really swollen. When we got here, they immediately started him on medication, which really brought him far. He now eats slowly by slowly, and there is a lot of progress. We still have a long journey, but there is a lot of hope on this recovery journey.
naje yararembye nyine ameze nabi cyane nta bantu bapfaga kubirebesha amaso yabo.
My child was badly off when we first arrived, to the extent where it wasn't good for the sight. However, right now there is very little left on the skin, which gives me hope that even what is remaining will completely heal.
Byari bimeze nuko bimeze ubu ngubu nyine bimpa icyizere ko n'ibisigaye bishobora gukunda.
In this model hospital, medicines are provided free of charge and only other services are charged based on the patient's insurance. Parents appreciate the government's involvement in this cancer treatment because they would not be able to pay the full cost themselves. It wouldn't have been possible for me to pay all the bills alone. Cancer is such a dangerous disease, so finding the finances internally or externally in the family is not easy at all.
hari abo tuziranye bafata shimyo za Faisal, hari abo tuzi bajya mu Buhinde no hanze gutyo.
There are those we know that go out of the country to seek treatment in India and other countries. Treating cancer is no joke. When you come here, you realize that there is exceptional treatment here. A child is medicated and given the best care. BUTARO Hospital reveals that since 2012, they started treating some of the cancer diseases until June of this year, 2022. They have received about 1,230 children who received cancer treatment services. About 57% of those who were treated before the year of 2018 did not show any other symptoms of the disease again. Dr. Oscar Nsazimana, a specialist in childhood cancer treatment, says that it is a curable disease if it is diagnosed early.
When one has been diagnosed as early as possible, there is a possibility that the cancer can be treated and cured. However, when you take long, treatment becomes impossible. As soon as you are diagnosed, you should immediately go to the hospital. Sometimes people opt for traditional medicine, thinking they are being bewitched, which is totally wrong.
Currently, BUTARO Hospital, located in Burera region, has the capacity to treat and diagnose 9 types of childhood cancer, including 5 types of blood cancer and 4 types of bone and muscle cancer. Kidney cancer is one of the most common cancers that are found in the children treated in these hospitals. Apart from children, this hospital also treats adults suffering from cancer. Martina Abera, RTV News.
On the sidelines of the high-level retreat for the summit on the EAC Common Market, the EAC Secretariat in Arusha, Tanzania, convened managing and media editors from partner states to deliberate on the role of media in deepening EAC integration. Our colleague Isabel Masozera caught up with RBS Silvanus Karimera, who was in attendance, to shed light on that and what Somalia's attendance signals.
For the East African community, or secretariat rather, to convene media houses, in this case editors, managing editors and so on and so forth, together under one roof to actually discuss and digest what the role of the media in integration of the 7 countries in East Africa was very crucial. Was very crucial in a sense that there have been this narrative where, for example, you've been perhaps been hearing about this narrative where people think that the integration process is up there on the top of the roof, in this case, on top leadership of the community. And now locals from, people from the grassroots levels are not aware of what is taking place. And even people dared to say that some of the strategies taken are just taken there from, Arusha, the headquarters, but people down there in these 7 countries, members of the East African community, are not aware of that. So the media stood out as one of the important tools to be now taking this message from up there to, trickling the message deep down to the locals of these people, so that after all, for the integration to thrive, it has to begin from down to up, So that's why probably we convene under one roof and we discuss the models of which we could be using as media houses to first to track the realization of the integration of the East African community.
One of the things that stood out within that particular conversation was the need to have a people-centered kind of communication when it comes to everything the EAC is doing. How do you think that can be achieved? And also, as you respond to that, one of the questions that was posed to the managing directors was how the EAC can communicate its achievements and opportunities for the public in a way that they can digest it and want to hear about it. What are your thoughts on that as well?
I think what stood out was this. The role of media as a medium of taking message deep down into locals was indisputable, number one. Number two, but also media members, in this case, we as media practitioners raised some issues to do with the capacity of media to actually go deep down and get access to what is taking place from the headquarters. Yes. And in this case, media managing editors, in this case, demonstrated some willingness, but of course, some stumbling blocks towards now having the access to the very message you are talking about, issues to do with the financial constraints, issues to do with the cross-border movements, and this goes deep down into now see the way these countries have been interacting and trading to one another. There was also issues to do with non-compliance for some countries, where some countries have really not been able to opening up their businesses because of the fears that has always been hovering around. Some countries thinking that when people from country A now enter to the country B are going to probably, grab their job opportunities and so on and so forth. So that is what actually, came up during the discussions and interactions. But again, the East African community leadership, in this case through some officials whom we attended the meeting together, thought it was high time for the governments, in this case through the Secretariat of the East African Community, it is high time for them to sit down and see, or rather realize that media is a very important tool to now take their message deep down to locals of these countries, to even speak up about some of the challenges that have not been reported about deep down there. So that is it, and I think at the end of the meeting, we had some resolutions which we think the East African Community Secretariat is going to be working on to see probably in the future if the media could now be given a platform to exercise their duties, so to speak.
This time, Somalia was invited to observe, attended as observers. What do you think this means? Is there a possibility of Somalia joining the East African community? And if that happens, what does that look like? What does that mean?
I think for Somalia to join the East African community is very important. It's very important in the sense that it's actually not important for Somalia only, but also for the East African community, because we are looking at what Somalia is bringing up on board. First of all, Somalia shares borders with Kenya and the other several countries across the East African coast. That is number one. But number two, Somalia is a huge, huge country. It is about 600 square kilometers, the size of France, size of South Sudan. It's very huge, but very huge with a small population, about close to 60 million people. But the mere fact that the Somali's president, was invited as an observer and given a platform to now come out broadly and ask the fellow leaders to be admitted, to me, it's one of the earliest, or lately, if you like, one of the early indicators that Somalia is going to be admitted. And for Somalia to be admitted, now this gives a room for any other country, for example, Ethiopia, which is very huge, close to over 1 million square kilometers, and which is very influential also in Africa. So I think to me, for Somalia to now get accession to the East Africa and the community, I think it's very important for the community to grow big and big. So to me, I think, and given the mood, the cordial mood that I saw in Arusha, how the Somali president was really, given a cordial, welcome and so on and so forth. Plus,
some even called him the golden boy of the moment.
Yeah. So I think it's if I predicted for Somalia to join the board, I think I wasn't be wrong.
Yes.
I think the future holds a light. I think the future is going to be good.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you.
And I look forward to the next 20 years revisiting some of these points and seeing where we are.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth.
All right. Back to studio.
Research conducted by the HIV/AIDS Association has shown that those infected by the disease are being discriminated upon when seeking services, and the association intends to launch a campaign to fight against this sort of discrimination. Precious Chirezi has this report.
A nationwide research was carried out from 2019 to 2020 and featured 938 people, some of whom have tested positive for HIV, sex workers, and members of the LGBTQ community. Research results showed that discrimination reserved for HIV-positive people has decreased from 50% in 2009 to 13% in 2020. Despite the decline, the president of the HIV Association, who oversaw every step of this research, says there has been a noticeable discrimination that should be eradicated. We would like the government to continue sensitizing educational institutions with regulations to ensure that HIV-positive children get to live full and improved lives. Outcomes of the research have been shared with members of parliament, which the executive secretary of Rwanda's network of people living with HIV says was intended to kickstart advocacy for these issues. We decided to seek the deputies out because they serve as representatives and can reach a variety of people from ministries and other agencies who can even reach more people. So we came to work together in an effort to get that 13% discrimination rate down. President of the Parliamentary Social Affairs Committee says advocacy will be done to the relevant authorities to resolve the issues they were presented with. The Commission's analysis goes to the General Assembly, then a resolution is made. I think it will be a good opportunity to have these discussions with the appropriate institutions, especially the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, to assure implementation. The research has demonstrated that the discrimination rate went from above 50% in 2009 to 13% in 2020, and the goal is to be at 0% by 2030. The research has also pointed out that the youth is discriminated against at a rate of 48% and women at a rate of 34.8%, whereas men stand at a 22.4%. Precious Chirezi, RTV News.
A group of about 15 students from the Kent State University in the U.S. and their accompanying teachers visited the Rwandan National Police, where they appreciated the way the Rwandan National Police works with the community. Betty Mutoni has this report.
Students wanted to know the functioning and the interaction of Rwanda National Police and the community, where Rwanda National Police Administration showed the students and the teachers how the police work with the community in various activities. The Kent State University students noted that they want to work with the Rwanda National Police in research partnerships in peace building and conflict resolution.
Students who are here have been taking a course about Rwanda. So this course was designed to teach students about the progress that Rwanda has made in different sectors, peace, education, health. So they are coming here to learn how police is helping Rwanda to implement those actions actually in terms of peace building. So and then they go back, they teach communities, and they share with others.
I expected to find a country in attempting to rebuild itself after an atrocity, but what I found was a country completely succeeding in unifying its people and rebuilding itself to be a place where everyone feels safe, secure, and happy.
So at the Rwanda National Police headquarters in Kacyiru, the training on food quality and drug inspections by Italian Carabinieri was closed, and the trainees noted that they have gained knowledge which will help them in their work because they are trained by those who are experts in food quality.
They found us doing consultative interaction with different institutions that are related or concerned with food safety and drugs. And it was a great opportunity through the Rwanda National Police that has a collaboration with Carabinieri, and actually we learned a lot that will help us to have an effective and efficient food safety law policy and strategy that will help us to improve on safety of food and drugs saturating in our country.
Experts from Health Protection Department of Italian Carabinieri noted that food quality and drugs is a big concern that requires the cooperation of different institutions.
For our culture, food is very, very important. We have experience since 1962 in fighting against food counterfeiting and other crimes related to the food and related to drugs. Also, drugs is another main topic of our special departments.
Trainees included those from Rwanda Food and Drugs Agency, Rwanda Investigation Bureau, Ministry of Health, and Rwanda Inspectorate, Competition and Customer Protection Authority. Betty Mutoni, RTV News.
On Friday, the Ministry of Education, in collaboration with the Ministry of Infrastructure, disseminated officially the new instructions determining requirements for technologists and technicians in construction services. People in the construction sector say that this will serve in addressing the issue of unemployment. Olive Nete has this report.
New disseminated ministerial instructions aims at allowing technologists and technicians who have completed level 5, 6 and 7 in the construction sector to be able to compete on the labor market, since the current law did not consider them to practice construction activities. Some of the technologists and technicians say that this will highly benefit them as it will solve some of the challenges they had.
Before the ministerial instructions, we had a lot of challenges where in the current law, we were not considered in the people allowed to practice in the construction services. There was no scope of work allowing people in level 7, 6 and 5 to perform, and this would lead us to work in a way that is informal, and it also limited us to perform activities that we are able to do. This was a very great challenge, and it will be addressed by the established material constructions.
The Acting Director General of the Rwanda Housing Authority, Sanzineza Noel, points out that this will fill the gaps that were currently in the sector, as it will create employment to the graduates of these levels.
We have, the skills and knowledge obtained from school. But when you get into the industry, into practice, obviously you gain more skills by experience. So before, getting into the industry, there will be a room of creating professional internships for these people, and eventually they will be employed in the sector to gain more experience and probably upgrade to even higher levels.
The State Minister in the Ministry of Education in charge of ICT and TVET, Idere Claudette, noted that the new ministerial instructions were established to support the current law and also to enhance the technical vocational training schools.
This law was not in line with the established TVET policy, where it was excluding, and it is excluding, technologists and technicians. These ministerial instructions were found relevant to complement the existing law, the law that I mentioned above, and to establish the functioning and organization of the construction profession for professionals who have completed the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th levels of technical, vocational, and education training.
The new ministerial instructions determining requirements for technologists and technicians in the construction services were established in April 2022, and it was disseminated today to be implemented. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Well, there you have it. On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you so much for your company. I'm Jane Mutoni. Bye for now. Enjoy your weekend.